Thank you for tuning in to Tact Talks. I'm joined today by Lauren Sears, who's the Recruitment Manager over at AccessPay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Look, I guess to kick us off, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing right now.
I'm the Recruitment Manager for AccessPay.
Yeah.
We are a Manchester-based fintech company.
Very nice. And you're over at City Tower, aren't you? Right in the heart of
Yeah.
Piccadilly.
Bang in the centre of Manchester, yeah.
Very nice, very nice. So I guess you're now Recruitment Manager at AccessPay, but you've not always done that. What were you up to? I guess, how did you get to where you are now?
So I started off in human resources. So I started off working for Marks & Spencer in human resources. So they have a shared services centre in Salford Quays.
Cool.
Spent a bit of time there, then did a similar job for Slater & Gordon lawyers. Then after that, had kind of my first recruitment hybrid with HR role, essentially. So I was doing both recruitment and HR.
Nice.
So did that for 4 years, kind of doubled the size of that company. And then sort of towards the end of that role, I was looking to get into the tech space. So I interviewed at quite a few of the major Manchester tech companies. And then I landed on my feet at AccessPay about 7 months ago now.
Nice. 7 months. And how's it been?
I think we've pretty much doubled our headcount, so busy,
Holy
but
crap.
good, yeah.
Yes, you're definitely busy then.
Absolutely, yeah, always. I think we've got about 20-something roles at the moment, so always scaling up.
Yeah, definitely. So what's driving that growth for AccessPay?
Our CEO, Anish, she's super ambitious, and I think like the plan is to double our annual turnover year on year.
Wow.
So to do that, we've got a big focus on ramping up our sales function this year. So that's the main focus at the moment.
And how many people have you hired since you started?
I think 75.
Oh my God.
That was last time I checked, but it's probably gone up by a few since then. Maybe,
do you ever
maybe
go
about
home
80.
or do you sleep in the office?
Do I ever go home? I do go. Sometimes I find it hard to put my phone down because I'm like, maybe we've had a few more applications. But
Wow, 75. And so
Yeah.
how many of those are in tech?
ooh, good question. Probably we did hire at least. I know we had 16 in the sort of engineering teams.
Right.
So we did kind of add quite a few roles into there. So we added. I think we went from 3 dev teams to 6. So yeah, there was like team leads, senior software engineers, mid-level software engineers.
Was there anything like delivery, like product owners, that sort of?
Yeah, we've got a couple of new product owners this month actually.
Nice.
Some have just joined us, a couple of new pre-sales guys. Yeah, so pretty much expanding in every area, you name it, we've hired into it.
Obviously, people know about this whole war on talent and everyone's struggling to get the right people in. And the fact that you've hired that many people in 7 months, more or less, is crazy. What do you think that's down to?
I mean, it is difficult now, but I feel like a lot of recruiters make excuses.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just kind of have to leverage, being a good place to work, because now the ball is definitely in the candidates, in the playing field. So
Yeah.
you really need to kind of leverage what you've got to offer as a company. And what we're finding as well is a lot of people from sort of big corporate companies want a little bit more of the kind of freedom that comes with a smaller kind of tech scale up. So less red tape, we don't necessarily have a lot of strict processes. So it means that you can kind of come into a greenfield role and put your own stamp on it really and help to define those processes.
Yeah, I guess from an engineering point of view, if you've got the opportunity to go from, we just spoke with a guy called Chris he used to work at Sainsbury's and now he's in a startup. And he was like, yeah, it's night and day the difference. And it's so refreshing as a techie, especially because it's, it used to take weeks and weeks and weeks to get one little thing through. Whereas now it's like you tapping on the co-founder's shoulder and being like, oh, what do you reckon to this?
Yeah, one of our new team leads said the same. So he'd come from Bet365.
Right.
And he, on his first day, he was like, I asked for some training and you said yes. And I'm like, he was like, that would have never gone through at my last place.
No way.
Yeah.
Accessibility and being able to empower your employees to manage upwards. If you're asking people to manage upwards and you give them the opportunity to do that, then so for people who don't know about AccessPay, I of course I do, but what do AccessPay do? What are they all about?
Yeah, so AccessPay is fintech software as a service.
Cool.
And what our software does is it sits between back-end payroll systems and the bank. Now, what that does for a business is it streamlines and automates their payments process. So within their finance function, there's less need for manual transaction processing. Reconciliations are instant, things like that. So it reduces the amount of manual transactions and therefore human error associated with those.
Right, those damn humans. Always messing it up.
But you'd be surprised how many people in finance are still like working off paper receipts and things like that. So just trying to automate the process.
Was there more of an appetite for it during COVID?
I think we did well despite the pandemic because we are a cloud-based solution. So, things existing on one clunky desktop, it's just not manageable anymore when everyone's working remotely. So I think we probably benefited a little bit from the move over to, more cloud-based solutions.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of businesses were thinking about, right, how do we become slicker? How do we become quicker? How do we become, like you said, more remote friendly, that sort of stuff. So it kind of makes sense that it would.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, wow. So you talked then before about recruitment, attracting people and leveraging what you have to offer. I really like that. How has AccessPay's offering changed, or what are you offering people when they come into the door? What's getting their attention, do you think?
Like I said, I think the freedom of working for like an innovative scale up. There's also things like our company cultures. It's a nice environment to work. So, I mean, obviously I would say that I'm a little bit biased, but you can check on our Glassdoor reviews and stuff. So the office is really positive. We're fully hybrid. So there's flexibility in terms of, if you want to work in the office, that's great. If you don't, then fine, you can work from home. There's no mandatory expectation of, I know a lot of companies at the moment are doing that thing where it's like, oh, it's hybrid, but you have to be in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it's not hybrid, sure. Whereas we actually are. There's a degree of flexibility within start times. We've got a couple of people that do flexible working, kind of parents and things that need, maybe they work 4 days a week or, change their hours to do school pickups and stuff like that. We were not super corporate as well, so there's like casual dress code in the office. There's free food in the office. We have company events, things like that. So we are trying to be just a nice place to work, a nice environment. We do things for the staff kind of periodically. We've got like a calendar of wellness events that we're looking to do this year. So last Monday is Blue Monday, so it's supposed to be the most depressing day of the year. It's the third Monday in the year. It's really far away from payday, so we sent out care packages to all of our staff. So that was a little bit of a nice gesture.
What were in
well received, like socks, some tea bags, some ginger shots.
Nice.
I
saw it on LinkedIn.
A little protein bar, just a little perk meal for that people weren't expecting.
Which might cost the business £5, maybe. It's something minimal, but it means such a big difference to the employees.
Yeah, it's just a gesture, and like it's not a one-off approach. Like, oh, one time we had this. It's like, we are looking to do things on an ongoing basis to kind of engage employees.
I absolutely love that, and it's all about not just attracting employees, but that comes into retention, right?
Retention, yeah.
Yeah, because again, a massive thing with all the competition that you're up against now, that you're not only against people in a 25-mile radius of you, it's like you're against the whole world, which sounds really dramatic, but it's kind of true. Wow, so super flexible, big part of it, exciting business, growing. What you do is interesting, mega. Look after your staff.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Very much.
Fair play. One of the things that we've talked about before is that, of course, scaling up a business is really tough, but you've done a lot around automating and streamlining your recruitment process. So can you speak more to that and what that's all around?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I joined, there was no recruitment process.
Sweet.
It had turned into a bit of a hiring manager free-for-all with their own agencies. And it was totally unmanaged by anyone. So I came in and I was like, right, okay. So needed to take ownership of the process, decide what that looked like. How many stage interviews for certain roles? What does that look like? Who do they interview with? Is there a task involved? What does that look like? So that is always changing. I think you can't just be like, oh, this is a process now, we never change it. Obviously we need to periodically review that. But I was managing everything on spreadsheets, like all the spreadsheets all the time. It's super tedious. So towards the end of last year, I was like, I need an applicant tracking system.
Nice.
Sat through a whole bunch of demos, managed to get one implemented last year. We decided to go with Pinpoint. They're not super well known, but for us, like they've just kind of met all of our requirements. So Now, like the candidate journey is super smooth. We can manage a lot more candidates. They're all in one place rather than we had job roles, on various job boards and whatnot. And then they're all sat in different stages. You don't know who's done what with who. So now we've got this portal where all hiring managers have access. And, you can see exactly how many candidates you've got and where they are in the process and who's done what.
Yeah.
So I think we successfully implemented it sort of at the start of this year. And there's already about 400 and something candidates being managed simultaneously in there. Candidates can book their own interviews based on hiring managers' calendar availability.
Oh, that's welcome.
Which has freed up so much time. So I was doing all the diary management before.
Yeah.
So we've been booking an average on like 35 interviews per week are ongoing at the moment. So it's really exciting. It's so efficient.
I'm so surprised that other ATSs don't do that.
I think some of them do, but
Right.
it's just the way that they do it. And then obviously, price factors into it. So some of the companies that we were having demos with were like, oh yeah, it's going to be like 20 grand for this. And then you have to pay for implementation. And then it goes up after this time. And I was just like, oh, okay. So yeah, obviously you want to get value for money as well.
Talking about process, just out of interest, what would your process be for, say, a software engineer coming in? What is the process from them sending them their CV to offer?
So for software engineers, we have quite a collaborative approach. So the people that review the CV are kind of tech leads and senior software engineers. Will take a look at the CV first of all, decide if they want to progress. And what I did at the sort of when I had a couple of months in the business was to review the process for the technical test, because I was aware that obviously some companies are trying to make people do, multiple stage interviews, take this test home, do it overnight. Here's an 8-hour test. I was like, we can't do that. So we've got it down to a 1-stage interview where the first 30 minutes is like general questions and the last hour is a paired programming test. And then hopefully based on that, we can make a decision.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Efficient. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And how did you get to that point where you were like, right, this is what we're doing? Did you go and ask other businesses what they were up to? And
I checked with some of the kind of agencies that we'd been working with, like what are other people doing? What do you think we should do? And it was a bit of we kind of tailored our own approach. I don't know if anyone else was doing it similarly. But I saw how quickly the software engineers were coming on and off the market in a matter of days. Yeah. So I was like, we need to be quick. So from us deciding that we want to interview someone, let's do an interview and then we'll know pretty quickly. Wow,
that's incredible. And I've got a new appreciation for it because we've started hiring a few more people into our team over at Tact, and we had a particularly long process, and we got in touch with the agencies that we use to recruit for us. Yeah, recruitment agencies use other recruitment agencies to recruit for them. It's really complicated, and they've been amazing. And we asked them, say, how can we speed up our process, make sure we're not losing people, make sure we're attracting the right people, that sort of thing. And we took their advice on board and hired like 3 great, amazing people. And I think the reason I'm saying that is because tech businesses sometimes feel like agencies perhaps are just trying to think about what's best for them in the situation. But you should definitely hear them out.
Yeah, I mean, some of the agencies on our PSL, like we've been working with for a number of years, and I always reach out to them. And I'm like, do you think our holidays are generous enough? What are the other tech companies doing? So I use them to do a little bit of benchmarking. It's within their interest as well to pitch our roles to their candidates if we can, make our offerings more enticing as well to candidates.
Absolutely. And those businesses that do work with agencies really, really well, I feel they're the ones that do hire quickly, more efficiently, that sort of thing. That's crazy you've done that, the 1-stage interview, and it's working, sure, yep. Obviously. Again, something else we've talked about before, something that you are super passionate about, is getting more women into tech, which is brilliant. Why is that so close to your heart, do you think?
Just in terms of getting an equal representation. There isn't enough gender diversity within tech. Even our new ATS system helps track candidate demographics, which is another piece of work that I want to work on this year.
Awesome.
But 20% of applicants are female. So that's, we need to address that clearly there's an issue somewhere where there aren't as many women looking at tech or maybe even finance. And we get it particularly in the sales roles as well. It's like, not only are you a tech company, but you're also looking for sales roles, which are traditionally quite more male orientated. So it is trying to find new ways of attracting and engaging with sort of less represented groups. So I think a piece of work that I'd like to do this year is do some focuses on some of our senior women that we have within AccessPay. So we've got quite a lot, actually. We've got our head of finance, Marie, our sales directors, Caroline, and our HR director, Sarah. So we've got quite a lot of senior leadership that are women. So I think really showcasing that, giving kind of a story as to how they got to where they are, and also for like myself as well. Like, I wanted to get into tech, and it's not always it wouldn't have been like a straight out of uni straight into a tech company, because I mean, I did a biology degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do necessarily. So I think it's just about representation and making it, look, we have all these, great women here, and you can, potentially make a step towards tech. Maybe it's not something so technical as software engineering. We have roles, like I said, within sales, marketing, implementation, things that don't need to be as technical as you would assume when you're like, oh, it's a tech company.
Yeah.
Because I definitely had the same kind of interpretation when I was younger. I'd be like, well, I don't know anything about tech. So
this is something that's come on the podcast before. We spoke with Amelia Bampton about this as well, because she's also super passionate about it. And she was saying a big thing that she did was go to like schools in different areas and talking about, by the way, getting into tech isn't just sitting with your headphones on, crunching loads of keys all day in a dark room. It's, you've got product owner, BA, UX, program managers, like all these other parts of the business that technically actually don't require you to do any coding at all, really, but you still are in tech. So that, I think, like you just said, when you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do, you didn't really know that those roles existed, I guess. And
no, absolutely, yeah.
And you get people from your business to, that's an amazing idea. Because he did a study ages ago about diverse work groups, and I'm sure you know more on the subject than me, but people who aren't focusing on getting diverse work groups in because they don't think it's a massive issue, the productivity and innovation that happens when you've got a diverse group of people is incredible.
Absolutely.
Because you've got all these different backgrounds, all these different experiences, different perspectives. And there was a study done, and I got told it at an event, and I don't know if this is actually true, but it's a really good indicator either way, is they did like escape rooms. We've all been to them. We have to get out of a room at a certain amount of time. They timed like a group of like white males doing it, and they got out in X amount of time. And as soon as they introduced someone from a different background, whatever it might be, or even when they took out the talking element of it, they got out quicker, because even without talking, people started to think about it differently themselves, which I thought was pretty cool.
I saw there was a study, again, don't quote me on this,
I know, we're going to get
like
sued.
The more female leadership you've got at sort of C-suite level, the more successful the company is.
I imagine that's probably true. We'll have to put links into this, otherwise, so we don't get sued.
I will find it. I'll be on Google Scholar straight after.
Yeah, send it me over. That'd be awesome. Yeah. That's brilliant. And so, what do you think businesses need to do to be more attractive to women getting into technology?
Again, flexible working, it's going to fall down to that a lot of the time, because I think there is still this perception that you can't have children and have a successful career, because it's going to take, time and effort out of that. But if you can offer more flexible working options, you open it up to a lot more of your workforce. So I think that's definitely kind of, one of the big things to go. And there's also a lot of stuff at the moment about menopause and women, and having menopause policies to support women through that, because that's a huge transition that a lot of the kind of older female workforce are going to go through, and that's another barrier to them, kind of if they are hitting that glass ceiling and they feel like, oh, well, I need to retire now, maybe. They're all conversations that it's starting to happen. So I think we are starting to see change. But I think, like you said, as soon as you go, oh, well, we don't have a problem here, or you just kind of pretend that there's not an issue because you don't necessarily see one. That's not always the case. So I think it is as important as possible to get as many kind of diverse perspectives as possible. So whether that be gender, race, religious background, socioeconomic background, I think it's super important.
Yeah, love it. because and again, I can't speak to any of that, of course. I mean, I think one thing that I am super aware of, and something we're doing at Tact, not this is an advert for Tact, but something we're doing at Tact is that we're getting D&I training from someone who I'll give you the number afterwards. And
Yeah, it's something that we're looking into. We got some quotes the other day. I don't think we're going to go with that company. They're
really?
a bit excessive.
Oh,
yeah,
but this person's very, very reasonable.
Oh, great, yeah.
And I've been in the tech sector, everything fantastic. And but she's doing it with us, and it's all around things like making sure that your job adverts aren't too like masculine. Because
there's a really good tool for that, actually. It's free to use. It's called Gender Decoder.
Gender Decoder. Okay.
Yeah, if you Google it, it'll come up. I'm not sure the exact URL, but that will, if you copy and paste your job descriptions into there, it'll tell you if you've got masculine or feminine words, and it's going to attract certain types of people. So one thing that website will tell you as well is if you have certain female orientated words, it doesn't put male candidates off applying, but the reverse is true. So if you say, target driven, successful, all these kind of stereotypically masculine words will turn off female candidates from applying.
Wow. Didn't know that. Well, I haven't done the training yet, but yeah. But wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Another thing someone mentioned is that if your business has like a benefits package, and we've all seen it, it's like finish at 3 on a Friday and we go out and get drunk. Someone who perhaps is a bit older, that might put them off applying to the job.
Or people, certain religions don't drink. Yeah, absolutely. So it's about creating an open culture where, if you did want to go out for a drink, that's fine. But equally, we've got soft drinks in the office if you want. It's about making it available and accessible for everyone.
Incredible.
And not excluding anyone as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So for yourself, and do you think another thing that people should be doing is, because obviously the skills gap in general is a really big concern. So getting people while they're at school, everyone really, is that something that you thought about as something you guys could do? I don't know.
We spoke to Manchester Digital, who we're part of, and I think they do some school outreach programs. It's something we'd like to get involved with. We do struggle, although we would like to take on, apprentices and train them up. When you are a small business, we're still, I think our headcount's about 130.
Sure.
Our resources aren't necessarily enough to warrant training of apprentices up from scratch. Wow. It's a bit of an unfortunate position that we find ourselves in, because we want this diverse talent, but we can't necessarily always develop it from. But I think a lot of larger organizations probably, they've got the resources to be doing that and having those training programs. And I think they're going to have to really to address the skills gap, because it's got that wide now, between the, what's the word? I mean, the demand and the availability of those skills, especially in the tech space. Certain, devs with specific tech stacks are few and far between. Yeah,
very true. It's tough, isn't it? Because you'd love everyone to do it, but you've also got to think commercially about, like, we don't have the resources to be able to do that. But you're right, there should be some sort of, as a bigger business, they have to do everything they possibly can do to invest in more junior talent to get them into the industry.
Absolutely.
So no, I get that. But one thing I always like to ask people when before they leave the podcast is, if you could speak to yourself back in the day and you wanted to get into technology, or speaking to someone who wants to get into tech, what advice would you give them?
I think advice for myself is probably don't put so much pressure on yourself when you are, when you're like 16 years old. You don't have to make a decision about the rest of your life. We're not in a society now where, you're like my dad's a good example. So my dad worked for the same company for 40 years. He worked for Rolls-Royce. Oh, wow. That's not where we're at today in terms of careers. Generally, I think kind of millennials have led the way for, you do a job for like 1 to 2 years and maybe you move on, get some progression. So I think don't put too much pressure on yourself about deciding what you want to do so early on. Even if you do a degree in something and you're not sure, it's fine. Like, you can chop and change jobs as many times as you want. Try something. If you don't like it, you try something else. That's kind of how I got my first human resources job. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no careers advice. It was go get a degree and you'll walk straight into a grad scheme. And that obviously didn't happen. So that was a big reality check. But yeah, I think just try things. And like we said earlier, there's not just technical roles within tech. There's, receptionists, there's, you know, salespeople, marketing. It's not always linear that, oh, I'm in a tech company, I have to do coding.
Yeah, I love that. Well, look, thank you for coming down. Always love to speak to you. Talked about some really interesting stuff, obviously, and all the resources that we talked about, we'll put them in the description below. But yeah, really excited to see where AccessPay is in the next 12 months. And thank you for coming.
Thanks so much. Watch this space.